First question.
help create the workforce housing in our city?
Okay, so with I think I heard the mayor say it was like 95% built out right now. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities within the city with refurbishing um, and looking at empty buildings and office buildings. And we can, I think if we bring our startup businesses and we bring people in to use some of the buildings that aren't being used for business, that would be one. For the extra 5% of land, of course, I love parks and recreation for festivals and family fun events. Our family has enjoyed all of the family-friendly events in Chandler for 18 years. I know there's probably room there to build. And for the workforce housing, I think I heard that they're looking at building some workforce housing in Chandler. And so the plan that I heard, I think sounds reasonable. And that's just to look, here's the thing. I have a daughter who's 17 years old. She would love to live in Chandler. When she turns 18, she'd love to raise her family in Chandler. And right now, it's be very difficult for her to get a place on her own. And so workforce housing is really important, I think. How do we develop that? I'm going to have to dive deep into that if I'm elected as council and find out. I don't have all the facts to answer that question, to be honest. I'm learning still about what they're doing and what the plans are. And so I'll just continue to dig deep in that and know that it's important, and especially for people who want to stay in Chandler.
Okay, thank you. Angel Encinas, same question.
All right, that same
When we
two-part
say
question.
capacity, we're talking about build out. So with Chandler at or near capacity or at build out.
Okay. Yes. With build out, it's a big topic here in Chandler, and I think it's more important now than ever that we collaborate closely with our residents on what the next step and what that next chapter is going to look like. And I'm excited to be part of that next chapter here in Chandler. But we need to work hand in hand with the communities that are going to be impacted by this growth or density, whether that's building up multifamily or repurposing existing buildings or spaces. As far as workforce housing, we also need to look at areas for opportunity zones, repurposing underutilized or blighted spaces, building relationships with a diverse range of developers, and updating development codes while eliminating needless ones are all strategies we can utilize to take advantage of that. Another great example is Maricory Woods' Hometown for All initiative, which is a great program which dedicates about 50% of certain permitting fees solely to workforce housing, and it's already created a substantial positive impact on affordable workforce housing. As your council member, I'll begin to build public-private partnerships and implement a wide range of strategies previously mentioned that best fit our needs for our city and allow for all income levels to live and work here in Chandler.
Thank you. Farhana.
Yes, could you kindly repeat the question?
Yes, ma'am. With Chandler at near build out for development with only about 8% of the land left undeveloped, what recommendations do you have for not only the remaining land use, but how do you help create workforce housing in our city or affordable housing in our city?
Thank you. Chandler has the high employment and thus attracting so many people to relocate or stay or work in Chandler. Our success became our problem in a way because now also in Chandler we have only 3% land available and rest of it being used, so we are built out. So now when you cannot expand your hand, what you do, you just pull your hands up, right? So probably we came to that kind of situation. Our channel needs to be built in a more innovative way, how to accommodate more people in a small space. Couple of projects that currently the city is having, that mixed use facility, and that would be a model to review and understand how much of a success that brings, because in one unit if we can provide business and provide housing facilities, that will eliminate a lot of problem of the housing, just having a single family units. So also at the same time, from the city council perspective, the codes, city codes and zoning that we need to work on constantly, and also we need to have the private-public partnership to have the investor with those kind of new ideas to invest on, and have the accommodation for the workforce in our city, so our city can not only provide the jobs, continue to provide the quality of life.
Jane Poston.
Well, this is an issue facing our entire country, but as we near build out, I think we need to be very careful about making sure that the right projects go in the right places. We need to be very careful about our land and where it's going. Also, I have talked to city staff, as well as city staff has approached this in a workshop, and I know that they're taking a multi-pronged approach. And I think it is a very reasonable, thoughtful approach in terms of developing affordable housing in our community. I think we need to continue to look across the country, look at our neighboring communities, and find those best practices that might suit us, that might be an appropriate fit. There are things that the city government can do and things that they shouldn't be doing. And we need to make sure that we're looking for best practices across the region. And then finally, I do know that we actually have some local developers that specialize in this particular issue. There are some projects and programs available through the federal government that provide some advantages to doing affordable housing. We need to look at those public-private partnerships right here in our own community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Matt Orlando.
Thank you, sir. First of all, we need to protect our economic corridors. We've been doing this for the last 45, 50 years. Price Road, West Chandler, and the airport. Those are the economic corridors, and we need those to continue putting business there so that we have the employment base for 15, 20 years from now. And to go back to affordable housing, we've been working on this issue for a couple of years now, the council. And we literally voted on it, or not voted, but we approved the staff to move forward on a couple of key components of that affordable housing plan. The first thing, the short-term solution is to update our city codes. I mean, little things like setbacks, parking spaces, making them smaller, reduce property lines, allow, and even large enough lots, you could put an in-law house. There's a lot of cities today that are actually building a small, we call it mother-in-law, father-in-law in-house on these properties. We could do little things like that. Short-term, those are code fixes. Long-term, we have to work with our state legislators to provide incentives for more construction, because there are a lot of things there are laws, that certain laws we cannot do certain incentives. We need to work with the legislators to clean up those laws. We need to utilize the more public-private partnerships. There's a low-end affordable housing credit tax called light tech bonds that we could actually induce developers to utilize those bonds to allow more affordable housing. We could also, long-term, we could look at taking down corners that we talked about earlier. And we could also ask our developers to set aside a certain affordable housing in a unit. So if you have a 400 multifamily, you could stipulate having 20% of those being workforce housing and the market value on the other 80%. And there's tax credits for that as well. So there's things we can do short-term and long-term, but whatever we do, we have to do something quick.
Thank you. Okay, next question will